to the room. Just give us a few minutes, okay? We've still got about 40 people in the waiting room, and we'll let them in shortly so that we can start. Thank you very much for being patient. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Apologies for keeping you all waiting. We are having some technical issues, but we'll be going on right the way as scheduled. My name is Victor from Rome Business School Career Service Department, and today we are honored to have Mrs. Maureen here. Today we'll be having a workshop on developing emotional intelligence for effective leadership. And it's my pleasure to welcome everyone on this call once again to another BRDP program. And to commence, I would like to welcome Mrs. Maureen Ogbonna down here. Thank you for your time, Mrs. Maureen. Thank you for always being an intellectual that wants to share our knowledge with us. Before I give Ms. Maureen the floor, I would like to read our profile to us. Ms. Maureen is one of top 50 inspiring Nigerian women in 2023 by Business Day newspaper. Ms. Maureen is the founder, CEO of Valor Nigeria Limited, an advisory business and management consulting firm with a focus on improving the performance of mid to senior management executive in the business transformation of organization across board. Hence why we're having this workshop centered around emotional intelligence for effective leadership. Ms. Maureen also served as an interim chairperson and vice person at the Auto and Allied Committee of Lagos State Chambers of Commerce and Industry between 2017 to 2021. Prior to this, Ms. Maureen has decades of experience in senior and executive management roles with various industries. Ms. Maureen has worked as group head, corporate and business strategy, group head, human resource strategy, managing director, Suzuki Vehicles Ventures in Nigeria. She also has worked as general manager, asset and equipment license, general manager, automobile fleet management of light and heavy vehicles. She's a vendor contract manager of marine operation at Shell Production Nigeria Company and at the Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas Company, as well as general manager, business development and personnel outsourcing within West Africa. Ms. Maureen expertise in strategy and business re-engineering, managing diverse and cross-cultural teams, coupled with their passion for governance, make her valuable and an addition to the brands looking to engage her and her expertise in different fields of work. Ms. Maureen is a speaker at events, a part-time faculty member at Rome Business School, and also a consultant and a trainer. Ms. Maureen, during the International Women's Day 2024, was a guest participant at the workshop organized by Nigeria Climate Innovation Center to elevate awareness to sustainable green economy in Nigeria. In 2023, Ms. Maureen was a contributor and participant in the IFC invitation to the roundtable to the World Bank Gender Strategy for 2024 to 2030. Ms. Maureen has been a contributor and a participant at the 2023 Nigerian National Action Plan for the Business and Human Rights Roundtable on the invitation of the United Nations Global Concept Network Nigeria. Ms. Maureen has been a guest speaker at various notable events and also at Durham University Business School in United Kingdom, where she spoke on entrepreneurship and new venture creation. Ms. Maureen has a Bachelor of Technology in Industrial Chemistry from the Federal University of Technology, Owerri, Futo, Nigeria, and also an MBA from Durham University Business School in United Kingdom. Her passion and vocation is to ensure the dignity of humanity is maintained through improving literacy levels, poverty eradication, and engendering gender equality. She can be reached via our LinkedIn page as Ms. Maureen Ogbonna on LinkedIn. Ms. Maureen, it's a pleasure to have you here. Please go on with your presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Seni, for that introduction, rather lengthy. But please, can you let in the 103 people in the waiting room so that they can be part of this? Because they've been waiting while we're reading the citation. Please let them all in before I start. Thank you. Thank you very much. My apologies to everyone here for the delay in starting due to the technical glitches we've had. I believe it will be worth your while. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from any part of the world that you're joining, and you're welcome. Mr. Seni, 122 people in the waiting room, please let them in.
Madam, joining shortly. The waiting room has been disabled already. I guess it's the service.
Okay. 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 So how will the people waiting have the benefit of this conversation?
Being recorded and will be shared. There will be a survey that will be going out during this presentation, during the Q&A of this presentation. Please feel free to fill your survey to get a video copy of this lecture.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So that means the room is full. We can't have this 113 people coming, no?
We can actually, they are joining.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone, for your patience. So, here we are. Let's make a start. Why are we here this afternoon? Why did we leave everything we're doing to be part of this conversation? It's because the business school thinks it's very important that we should remind ourselves, or rather educate ourselves about emotional intelligence and the need for that. At any point in time, if you can't hear me, quickly just type in the chat box or indicate to anyone, organizers or myself, that you can hear me or you cannot hear me, please. Okay, thank you very much. Why are we having this conversation? It's because in this increasingly VUCA world, the world today is VUCA. VUCA means volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. There is a corresponding need for increasing effective leadership. I'm sure you will agree with me that the world is VUCA now. It is volatile. Is it not volatile? With all the number of wars we're having around the globe, we haven't had this number of wars in history. From West Africa to South Africa to Western Africa to Europe and different parts of the world, there's a lot of conflict. It's uncertain. Uncertain not just in our parts. I know we are all mourning about the rapidly increasing price of fuel, but a lot of things, uncertain things are happening around the globe. Complex. Is it not complex? Climate change and the impact and everything going on in our economies, and ambiguous. So we need an increasing, a commensurate amount of increasing in effective leadership. Research and practice have confirmed that emotional intelligence, which is called EQ, is a cornerstone of effective leadership, which drives improved decision-making. And we so need that improved decision-making in this VUCA world. Emotional intelligence drives stronger relationships, which is very critical to progress. And it also improves team, group, and company performance. So it is critical for all leaders and also leaders to know how to improve their emotional intelligence so that they can be better, they can be more effective, and they can deal with what we are currently going on in every part of the globe today. Harvard Business School confirms that EQ helps leaders to successfully coach teams, manage stress. Stress is a constant. It has always been there in our lives, but with the VUCA world, we need to, each and every one of us, leaders and yet to be leaders, how to manage stress. More than ever, how to resolve conflicts. You will agree with me, more than ever, how to resolve conflicts. Build stronger relationships, which result in improved performance outcomes. So what is emotional intelligence? What is it? What is it? What does it mean? Just to describe it, it is the most sought after interpersonal skill in the workplace and even in life. I'll repeat for emphasis. Emotional intelligence is the most sought after interpersonal skill in the workplace and in life. Research confirms that 70% of employers value emotional intelligence more than technical skills. And I'll ask a question. I know we're a bit short on time. We've got about 10 effective slides, and in the 40 minutes we have to learn and share together, that gives us an average of 4 minutes per slide, which is short. But I'd like you to put in the chat box, please. Would you rather work with someone who is very technical, but short on people management skills? Or would you rather work with someone who is better at managing people than on technical skills? Just, you can put people management or technical, and we'll check it in the chat box shortly to know which one you prefer. For all we know, you may want the reverse of what research says. So emotional intelligence is defined as the ability to understand and manage your own emotions, as well as to recognize and influence the emotions of the people around you. So first and foremost, you need to understand your own emotions, and you need to be able to manage your own emotions before being able to recognize the emotions of other people around you, and also being able to influence the emotions of people around you. Now, the term emotional intelligence was coined in 1990, so it's not such an old term. It was coined by two researchers in the field of psychology and psychiatry, John Mayer and Peter Salovey. But Daniel Goleman, a psychologist, made it popular. And he's quoted to say the most effective leaders are all alike. They have a high degree of emotional intelligence. If we have the luxury of time to go down history to the effective leaders throughout history, we will find out that they did exhibit very high degrees of emotional intelligence. So what is critical? Sorry, my apologies. So what is critical is not IQ. I believe we know what IQ is. SQ, social intelligence. PQ, political intelligence. It's not enough. It's not that IQ, SQ, and PQ, and technical skills are not important. They are, but emotional intelligence trumps them because it's the most basic requirement for leaders and those in executive roles to be more effective. Even not just leaders, anyone that has a high EQ will perform better in life. So emotional intelligence is a must-have because it's a strong predictor of performance. So how can we tell? Sorry, my slides are all over the place. How can we tell the level of emotional intelligence that we have? The signs of high emotional intelligence include being calm under pressure, keeping your impulses in check, the ability to resolve conflict effectively, the ability to respond to others with empathy. Let's give some emphasis again. The ability to be calm under pressure, to resolve conflict effectively and not be impulsive, also to respond to people with empathy. Now, certain professions require people to have high EQ. I can imagine that you have already answered to that. Surgeons, for example, teachers, for example. Can you imagine if the person performing surgery on you is not calm? What can you say about the state of mind of a surgeon about to perform surgery, a procedure, and is razzled, ruffled? As also teachers, can you imagine teachers who are not calm, who don't work well under pressure? We also need to, at this point in time, bring in the matter of neurodiversity. It is not really a new term, but it's a very critical one that we need to know about. Neurodiversity are people, neurodiverse people are those who we tend to say are not typical in their behaviors. Not typical in their behaviors. We'll dwell some more about this in the course of this presentation. Okay, so the increasing need to understand and empathize with neurodiverse teams makes for leadership to have high EQ. Those people that we think are on the spectrum, as we say, autistic members in our team, people with learning disabilities, they're not disabilities, they're conditions. The science is changing the narrative about them so that we don't see them as people with mental health problems. Signs of low emotional intelligence include conflicts and misunderstanding. You know, those people that are always bring along conflicts. People that are difficult to manage, or people that have difficulty managing and expressing their emotions. People that have difficulty acknowledging other people's concerns, people that you have strained conversations with. They can't have a decent, calm, reasonable, respectful conversation. People that are constantly blaming others for mistakes or that are prone to outbursts. So when you see these signs, you know what to look out for. You know what to expect. Even though the diagnosis of low EQ is usually or best done by experts, trained people, but you can tell if they're your team or within your family or people you associate with. Moderator, I think I'm having a little challenge with my slides. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm good now. Thank you so much. So for all those who have put comments in the chat box, I'll come back to them. We just need to make progress on the slides. I will come back to the chat box. Thank you. Thank you for your participation. Thank you. So components of emotional intelligence. What makes up emotional intelligence? Now we've defined it. We've given a little bit about the history. We've given the signs of low and high EQ. Now the components. The first one is to know yourself. You have to be self-aware. You need to know your strengths and your weaknesses. You need to recognize and acknowledge your emotions and how it affects yourself and the people around you. So we need to know that self-assessment of EQ is usually false, as most people do not give a true assessment of themselves. I'm sure you will agree with that. Most of us, if we're asked to say, okay, do we perform well under pressure? All of us would vote yes. Most of us will say yes, but in reality, not everyone works well under pressure. A number of people don't work well under pressure. So it's best to use a 360 degrees feedback assessment. And what's a 360 degrees feedback assessment? It's an assessment, a feedback from people who you report to, people who report to you, and your peers. So if you work in an organization and you report to the MD, for example, your MD will assess you. The people that work that you supervise or their boss will assess you, and the people that are your contemporaries. And the assessment is on how are you able to manage your emotions? Do you know your emotions? What triggers you? What are your triggers? How you work and how it affects other people. That is the assessment that you need to do. I also add that it's important that we use personality assessment tests as well. I imagine some of us, if not all of us, have had them, have used them, because personality assessment tests give us a scientific way to a high degree of our predisposition to respond or react to situations. So that is science on its own telling us what we are predisposed to in our behavior. The second component of emotional intelligence is self-management. And that's the ability to manage emotions in difficult situations and still maintain a positive outlook. So you see that all of us need this self-management, especially now in Nigeria, where the skyrocketing cost of fuel is like a daily situation. Higher emotional intelligence, people with higher emotional intelligence are slower to react or they respond to situations. Now, notice the difference in words, react and respond. And they do this by doing whatever is required to manage emotions before giving a response. So for example, if you have an unhappy customer or you have an email from your colleague or boss that is harsh or rude, what would be your response to that? How would you react? You're given 24 hours or you have a situation on your hands. How would you respond? In all honesty, first. And secondly, what is the best way to respond? Do you immediately lash out to the customer for being rude or for your colleague or boss for being rude in the email? Or do you pause, reflect, and give a more considered response? That is called self-management. Another component of emotional intelligence is social awareness. Very, very important as well. And that's the ability to recognize other people's emotions. Very important. Now we've talked about accepting, recognizing our own emotions. And now this is about other people's emotions and the dynamics as well within a team, group, or organization. Some of us have no clue about how people respond. That is why we speak sometimes in unkind ways. We react sometimes in, not proper ways to people in our team or even people in our family or people in our community or network without considering how they will respond. It is very important to be socially aware. It is also important, it is called, how to read a room. Some of us walk into rooms and can't sense what is going on. There is a meeting, a tense meeting, and we don't even know. We have no filters. We can't sense. So it's important to recognize people's emotions. And that requires practicing empathy, understanding other people's feelings and perspectives, and it enables better understanding, improved communication, and improved collaboration within and across teams. When you recognize other people's emotions, it makes for better understanding. You see things in a better light, the way you're supposed to see them. And you will be able to communicate better and collaborate better. Collaboration here can mean work together or whatever it is that you do with the other parties. Research from Global Leadership Development ranks empathy as the #1 leadership skill. Empathy is the #1 leadership skill. So leaders who master empathy perform 40% better in coaching, managing others, decision-making, and performance. This is from Center for Creative Leadership. So they say that people don't resign from an organization. It's a popular quote, I'm just paraphrasing. Rather, they resign from a bad leader. Take note of that. When people resign, it is largely for the reason of bad leadership. So you need to understand other people's emotions and manage them better or influence them. We have heard the use of the word influence other people's emotions better to get the better outcome for everyone. So we'll just define empathy here because we've used the word a number of times. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. So when you say, I empathize with you, it means, oh, I feel you. What we call I feel you in Nigeria is I empathize with you. Components of emotional intelligence. Another one is relationship management. I know relationship management is there in appraisals, right? When we have appraisals, I think is a component. I believe it's a component. It should be a component of the appraisals process or form, whatever way you do it. How you are able to manage others, your ability to influence, We've talked about ourselves, ability to manage ourselves. Now, the next level is ability to influence, to coach. Coach is to bring about the best in the next person. Mentor is ability to also guide as well, just like coach others, and to resolve conflict effectively. You can see that these words are constant. Conflict especially is constant because in life, where there are 2, 3 people, there will definitely be conflict. And conflict is a difference in opinions, okay? And here, we need to know that it is important to resolve conflicts and not to avoid them. Conflict is a constant part of life. Conflict is a daily occurrence. Conflict is not necessarily bad. It is the inability to resolve them effectively that is not healthy. Unresolved conflict has damaging effects like lost time gossiping and, the impact of unresolved conflicts, toxic environments, disengagement, and all that. Can we do a quick poll? Cast our minds back. Who has been your best manager throughout your entire career? And what made that manager the best manager? Your best manager? Or your best teacher? And what made them your best teacher? Just put it in the chat box for me. Thank you. Now we're moving on. So far, so good. I hope we're doing well with time. Okay. How to improve emotional intelligence. First, it's a 360 degrees assessment like we earlier mentioned. And when that assessment comes back to you, that's assessment by your boss or your supervisor or your at work or whoever you look up to, your subordinates and your peers, it's important to have an honest interpretation of the assessment outcomes or the results, and then accept the feedback. I know that in our part of the world, okay, we query feedback. But you know what? Strategists say that feedback is the food of champions. If it's not for feedback, all the beautiful products that you and I like, even if it's our favorite restaurant or our favorite hairdresser or our favorite anything, our phones, if not for feedback, Apple will not obtain us the way they do, churning out on a yearly basis new products that we're so hooked on that we keep buying. It is feedback. And the feedback is not supposed to be, it shouldn't be sweet. Feedback is feedback. Feedback is the reality of the situation. So feedback is the food of champions. Honest interpretation and accepting of the feedback. A lot of us say, no, this is not my feedback. No, I don't accept this. And you go to court, you don't accept it, you petition HR if there's an assessment, or somebody tells you, oh, you behave like, you say, no, I did not. You know, we're so used to that. And I don't want to believe it's a cultural thing, because it's not, it shouldn't be. It should not be that we challenge feedback. Feedback is feedback. Okay, should be to a large extent the true assessment of the situation. And when you get the feedback, you now make a good plan for self-corrective measures. Daddy, if you can stop shouting at me, I'll do my homework better. I promise I won't play too much. You know, those kind of negotiations that we have with our children? Same thing in the workplace. Same thing in the workplace. Make a good plan. Your subordinate says, boss, if you can stop shouting, or if you can stop giving me overload of work on a Friday afternoon, you know, feedback. They're telling you the things you should do better. So it's important to acknowledge and accept that emotions drive behavior. That's the second aspect of improving emotional intelligence. I know that often in a male-dominated society, there's a tendency to say that the females are more emotional. Well, that's not true. Every human being is emotional. The men just as much or even more, I would say equally really emotional. Because you know what? Emotions drives behavior. There is no action or inaction that is not driven by behavior. Everything you do is driven by emotion. If we do a deep dive into the reason the 330 people signed in now to this class, there's an emotion that drives it. In fact, there are tons of literature about emotions driving behavior, research and practice. There are coaches, lots of coaches that work on emotions and teach people about emotions and how to manage them. Okay. So it's good to reflect on the triggers. What triggers? What are those triggers that you respond to that drive your emotions, that make you react in a certain way? Okay, I've given a sample of Danube. Danube is a well-known coach on School of Emotion. His business is School of Emotions. He's coached, he's an American. He's done great work. He has taught me, he has coached me on emotions. So I can speak to that. But there are tons and lots of people who do good work on emotions and how to manage emotions. How to improve emotional intelligence, the third one, proactive listening. When we listen, there should be no distractions and we focus on what the speaker is saying or what the speaker is not saying. What the speaker is not saying, as well as what we are hearing him say. There are non-verbal cues, and we need to take note of those non-verbal cues. Some are even cultural. In some cultures, some people don't make eye contact. They may be listening to you, but culturally, because they've been conditioned, they don't make eye contact. It doesn't mean they are not paying attention. The way we talk in Nigeria, we speak and then we're very effusive in expressions. We talk with our hands, we talk with our heads, we talk with every part of our body, including our feet. Meanwhile, we're speaking with the mouth. It's important to understand what these hand gestures mean. In a team, you will find, as is in the world today, multi-generational workforce. You'll find the 60-year-olds working in the same organization, 50-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 30-year-olds, and 20-year-olds working in an organization. And you can tell from the expressions, the nonverbal cues differ. For a high EQ, you need to understand what those nonverbal cues or what those expressions mean. Okay, the way the different generations will express themselves are different. You need to have the intelligence to understand, okay? To understand and interpret correctly. What a shrug means to a Frenchman is different from what a shrug means to a Nigerian or an American, and the way it's done. So if you have a team made up of people across countries and cultures, you will need to understand what all that means. It's not easy to be a leader. It's not easy to be effective, but that is what we're called to do, especially as the world keeps getting even more exciting, I would say. We need to be alert and observant to what is going on in the room or the team or the group. Science and practice shows that being distracted is interpreted by the audience as a lack of interest. If you come into my office and you sit down and we're having a conversation or we're just chatting, we're having lunch together, and I pick up my phone and I start to send a text message, what does that mean? It means I'm ignoring you. But again, we need to be careful because some of our colleagues, family members who are neurodivergent are restless. They can't sit in one place. They must do something. They must go on their devices or talk on phone or something. It doesn't mean they're not paying attention. It doesn't mean they're not paying attention. It just means they are different. They process information differently, and we need to understand that. Of course, important, you need to also be able to filter when the person is not neurodivergent or just being plain rude, or the person is actually neurodivergent and can't sit still because they're bored. Okay, it's important. These are all the things we need to do to know about emotional intelligence, and that is why it is said to be the #1 game changer for effective leadership. Oops. Sorry. Okay, sorry. Okay, sorry about that. How to improve emotional intelligence? Educate yourself. There is so much information, but please go to authentic sources. Go to renowned, reputable sources, educate yourself. And then journaling. At the end of the day, I believe we should sit back and assess how the day went, how we performed, how we responded to situations, to people especially. Did we overreact? Did we respond? Or did we act on impulse? What are the triggers for those actions? Sometimes when we sit back and do those reflections, we realize that actually I had a rough day. I was in the management meeting and MD lashed me. And I came out and I could have been, received the information from so and so, but I had it rough, so I just lashed out. It's important to do this so that we can be better at managing people. Okay, there's a long list here, not too long anyway, on how to improve our emotional intelligence. It says, observe how you react to people, look at your work environment, do a self-evaluation, examine how you react to stressful situations. We have a default response to situations. So when you know your default response, or your buttons, if you would, you will know how to react. Take responsibility for your actions, but importantly, examine how your actions will affect others. How does emotional intelligence make you a better leader? I'm going to take this down. How does emotional intelligence make you a better leader? Leaders are the live wire of the organization. So when they lack emotional intelligence, the organization is unable to effectively harness the human potential to deliver on the mandate that is being given to. So you can imagine a leader who has a low EQ. He can't manage himself. So how can he manage others? So the human potential, which is the biggest asset of any organization, will be very poorly managed. And what does that make of the organization? Poor performance. Definitely. So we need to be very careful about that. The negative effects of a low EQ in leaders shows up by low employee engagement and high staff turnover. So when you see people walk out of a team, walk out of an organization, resign and all that, it just, everything starts and ends with leadership, really. Okay, so it's imperative to develop high emotional intelligence for everyone. People with high EQ High EQ equates to better manage interpersonal relationships because you already know yourself, your faults, your weaknesses. You know how to manage yourself. You're constantly working to manage yourself. And then you understand and know how to manage others. And that's crucial for fostering positive team dynamics and effective collaboration, both within the team and outside the organization. So we have a call to action. And the call to action is, what will you do today, given the information that we've shared, to be a more effective leader? Given the fact that the world is getting even more VUCA, it will be more VUCA because we're growing in number. We hit the 9 billion mark a few months sometime early this year. And the number keeps increasing. I know that countries in the West are dropping in population, but countries in Africa and Asia are increasing in population. So the world gets more VUCA. And therefore, we need even better effective leaders. So what is your plan to be a high emotionally intelligent leader or person so that you can manage yourself and the people around you better? Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Over to you.
Mr. Daniel, are you there? All right, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Very much. Please, if you have questions, do leave your questions on the comment section. Boma, I have one question for you.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, ma'am. You mentioned something about working and reporting under a manager that lacks emotional intelligence.
Yes.
So let me pick a scenario. An issue where a subordinate is working a manager that is always emotionally traumatizing, to use that word, because it's very overbearing. And this manager do not adjust, but rather it gets more aggravating over time. What will you advise the subordinates to do? And how is the proper way to correct such manager without making it look insultive?
Okay. There's something I always said to my colleagues. In fact, one of them put it on LinkedIn in the past 2 months. The same question you're asking is what he asked me a long time ago. And I said to him, manage your boss. It's not necessarily the boss that should manage the subordinate. You also should manage your boss. Since you should have the high EQ, you should know yourself and your emotions and how you respond, manage yourself. You should know him and understand him. You should manage everyone because the important thing is to what? Get a great delivery, get a great performance. So you don't wait for him or her to be the one with the high EQ. You be the one with the high EQ. Because being the one with the high EQ, go learn it if it's not there innate in you, is what will make you a great leader. That's my response. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. But it actually it opens up another gateway to another question. You said manage your boss. How do you suggest one do that?
I just said it. What are his triggers? You already said it is difficult. Why is it difficult? Could he be neurodivergent? Yes. Or could he just be, it's just his nature? If it's his nature, there's no, there must be something good about him. There must be a way. There must be a way to manage him. But you have to live with him. You have to work with him. So you have to find a way of reducing the conflict and keep your eyes on the ball and deliver what you need to deliver. That's life. We can't all be of the same mode of character and emotional intelligence. So you just have to keep walking the tightrope to making sure that the outcome of performance between the two of you and the team is what it should be. That's why the word is manage.
All right, ma'am. Miss Anita has a question for you. Miss Anita, please go ahead. Miss Anita, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I was muted back. So good day, Madam Maureen. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was really enlightening. There's something I would like to ask, because most of the time when they speak on emotional intelligence and managing emotions and all that, they always speak from the aspect of the senior to the junior, or the superior to the subordinate and all that. One thing that is not usually spoken about a lot is the fact that subordinates can actually abuse superior, play victims and play all of that. So my questions now is, one, is it really possible for a superior or a senior or a leader or a head to actually be abused by their subordinates? Two, how do you as a manager manage people, difficult subordinates and all that? Because most of the time they conclude and they judge and like, oh, they will never understand. But most of the time, the issue is necessarily not the leader. So what is your advice in a situation like that? Okay. Thank you.
I need to understand your question. Okay, the first one, what I hear you say is, I'm trying to understand the question there, what you're trying to convey. A leader or a senior person abusing a younger person. So what's the question exactly you're trying to ask? Anita, did you mute her back? Okay. She asked two questions. The first one is, yes, Anita, can you ask your question, because it wasn't clear at all? Can you quickly unmute her so she can ask? If it's not coming up, let's have the other people until she comes back. Anita says she can't unmute.
I'm back. Yes, I'm back now. My question is, the first one, is it possible for...
Anita, you have the floor. Quickly, please.
Yes. Okay, so is it possible for a superior, a manager, to be abused by their subordinates? That's my first question. Secondly, how...
Anita, yes. Anita, let me answer that first.
Yes.
I'm wondering where the question is there. Is it possible? Okay. You've never seen it. It happens all the time. Governors are abused. State governors are abused. The president is abused. Then the people in the office
not
as
verbally, well. Not verbally. I'm talking about emotionally. Like they do something wrong when their subordinate, the superior reacts, like tries to put this person in check. They make it seem like the person was just went out of line, when really the issue, like for example, now you didn't do what you were meant to do.
Anita, I hear you. I hear you. There are other people on the queue. Anita, how many years of work do you have? Do you have work experience?
Over 5 years.
So you've never seen that happen before. It's very commonplace.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what your question is.
My question is, most of the time when we speak about emotional abuse, emotional intelligence, the concentration is usually on superior against subordinate.
It works both ways. It works both ways. It works both ways. Haven't you seen it? Children are their parents. In the office, subordinates abuse bosses. Is it news? That's why I'm asking your years of work, because it's common. It's well, not as common. It happens. It's not news at all.
Yes.
So it's not news. So what is the question?
So it goes to my second question. Second question is, how would you advise a subordinate to handle a difficult, a superior to handle a difficult subordinate without it seeming like they are,
Okay, just go back to the slides that we shared today. Okay, everything is in there. Understand the person. Understand the triggers. Why this person difficult? And I'll give you an example. Let's give some examples, and maybe you need examples. Someone tells me of a subordinate that cannot sit down and write a report, but she's a great marketer. And she's so stubborn, she will never sit down and write a report. Month after month, year after year. And it took a while before the manager understood that this person could be challenged. She has a problem with writing. Maybe it's not about the literacy. It could be about some people have dyslexia, challenged with reading abilities. That's why we talked about neurodiversity. You have to be highly emotionally intelligent enough to know someone that is great at marketing but cannot write a report. And by the way, if you read Herbert Mwigwe of blessed memory, his biography, it was mentioned by his former bosses that he never would sit down to write a report, but he would go and do great business. And again, he's a restless person. So maybe he was on the spectrum, but his bosses managed him. Another person told me of how one of his best performers is unable to sit still. At any point in time, you find him at the gate of the company. So how do you manage such a person? Some are rude, some are nasty. It's just to understand what the triggers are. What really drives that behavior? Is it a personality? Is it a neurodivergent trait? And manage it. I hope that answers your question.
All right, Ma.
So
we have another question from Joel.
Yes,
Mr.
go
Joel,
ahead, Joel.
please quickly.
Okay, hi, good afternoon. I must confess, that's a great lecture, ma. God bless you. Can you hear me, please?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, amazing. So this is my question, right? I so much want to believe that you understand that a continuous relationship with a toxic person will eventually lead one to hold some negative emotions. And these negative emotions will lead to depression and certainly mental health issues. So when one is driving towards these issues of mental health, in sacrificing or trying to utilize emotional intelligence, what would be your recommendation for that person?
Okay, for a toxic situation, that means everyone is in the same situation. It's not a question of two people that have that conflict. So it will be clear. Okay. So thank you, Anita, I've seen your response. So when you toxic, and toxic is toxic for everyone. So toxic is not just toxic for two people. It's a toxic situation. So what happens is then it's a choice. Okay. For mental health reasons, is advised you leave. It's advised you leave the relationship. Okay. And that's why we mentioned somewhere in the slides that people don't just leave companies, they leave their bosses. If the boss is unable to manage them or the relationship gets toxic, they leave. So that's the response. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
I hope that answers. You're welcome.
Absolutely, it does. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, Ma. We'll move to Onyeka. Onyeka has a question. Onyeka, please ask the question.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, ma'am. I hope you can hear me, everyone.
Loud and clear.
Okay. My question is this. It's just really pretty straightforward. I wanted to find out if there's a relationship between being emotionally intelligent and being objective. You know,
Because
because
there's a very big relationship.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. I can answer you straight off. Being objective, that's what we've been talking about, objectivity all through the slides, where we said self-knowledge, self-awareness and all that. Be objective. Okay, do a 360 degrees. It's all about objectivity, not subjectivity. Okay? Yeah?
All right, Ma.
Does that
Thank
answer
you.
your question?
I think that answers our question, Ma. We have another question from IJ.
Okay.
IJ, please go ahead and ask your question. IJ, are you there?
Hello.
Yes, we
Yes,
can hear you.
we can hear you. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, yes. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Okay, so for a quick one, I
The
wanted
network is
to
bad.
know at
Can
what
you
point do
say it
you
very
this,
quickly?
you said
Your
a whole
network.
lot about self-awareness, doing a 360 360 kind of. Okay, so at what point do you draw a line between the leader and the subordinate, whereby the subordinate you're very much aware that the person has some certain character or characteristics. At what point do you, now being emotionally intelligent is knowing that, okay, this person has this habit or this character? At what point do you draw the line between their manipulation and then you drawing the line as a manager to take
Look,
certain
I don't
action
understand really
and without being
what you mean by
biased?
manipulation. I mean, there's so much in that statement that
Okay,
I
so
don't
now
really understand your question.
okay, so now this let me rephrase for clarity. So now we're dealing with leadership and emotional intelligence. So now we understanding the weaknesses of a subordinate. Now, at what point, because having a 360 awareness lets you understand that this person has this particular weakness. Now, how do you deal with being biased as concerned with taking certain decisions as regard that particular person and their colleague? At what point do you draw the line that another colleague does not say, okay, this person is actually being biased or this judgment is not being fair? How do you draw the line that it won't seem like a biased decision when it comes to leadership?
Okay, I'm trying to understand what you're communicating. You say, okay, how do you remain objective in the 360 degrees
Yes.
feedback? Okay, so
Yes, please.
a wrong assessment will stick out like a sore thumb because it's alien to the assessment from other people. Remember, 360 degrees is not one person assessing you. If you do a 360 degrees properly,
Of course,
different people assessing you on the same situation. So you can tell the degree of correctness of that assessment. Okay, so the issue of subjectivity or bias, really, you can tell. Does it make sense?
So yes, it does. So basically, with the 360 assessment, it just gives you a clarity on whether you're being objective or whether there's any biased judgment.
That's the idea. That's the idea. That's the idea. It's not one person saying one thing about you. It is different people saying, assessing you on the same points. So if you see somebody score you 2 and another person and the others score you 98, I mean, just like in an exam, you're going to wonder, how come this person is scoring me 2 when the rest are scoring me 98? All right? So that's an anomaly.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine.
All right.
Thank
Any
you,
more
ma'am.
questions?
Yes, there's a question here on the chat box. So the question goes, is there any contradiction between emotional intelligence in line with relationship management? Is there any contradiction between emotional intelligence in line with relationship management?
I'm wondering what the person is trying to ask. Contradiction. Relationship management is a component of emotional intelligence. So I'm wondering where the word contradiction comes in. That's why I'm wondering, what does the person really want to say? You understand? I don't understand what the question is. Contradiction when relationship management is a component of emotional intelligence. So I'm wondering, where is the contradiction? Why that word contradiction? What is the person actually trying to say? Okay. So that to me is not a question. The person hasn't
have a question. Please raise your hand, please.
Yes. Duro Jared Deals Limited wants to ask a question. So raise your hand. He put in the chat box that he wants to ask a question. So please raise your hand. Duro Jaye.
Mr. Drew,
Hello, Daniel.
please go ahead
Okay,
with your question.
Temidayo Moka, please go ahead and ask your question.
Mr. Temidayo,
Okay,
please,
yes.
we can hear you.
Thank you very much for eventually noticing me. Yeah, my name is Temidayo. Thanks for the presentation, Mark. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, fine. Please, how do you manage and keep up with emotional intelligence with colleagues that are toxic in disguise? Okay, I happen to be the first manager in my department. I was was to come join a company, and then I give them my terms, and I happen to be the only one as a manager in the team, an HR business partner. But then ever since, I've been noticing funny attitude within the team, more like they have their cohort kind of system, and
What's your
pulling up.
question? Mr. Temidayo, what's your question?
My question is, how do you respond to a toxic in disguise colleagues that rather prefer to speak ill behind you, behind you, and they just want to just show as if they are good, whereas they are not. You know, I have people calling me, telling me that why
Okay,
these people have
Mr.
issues with
Temidayo,
you? I'm with
your
you.
question is, how do you deal with colleagues who are not nice, right?
Okay. Yes, who are not nice,
So
but in disguise.
Okay, so what you're asking for really is a coaching question. That's what you're asking for. But
Yes.
I'll answer you straight to the point. We can't do a coaching question now because we need to understand the nuances behind that story. So we can't do one now, but I'll tell you the same thing we talked about in emotional intelligence, the entire slides.
Okay.
What are their reasons? What are their reasons for behavior? Have you tried to understand the reasons for their behavior? That's it. You don't need to answer me because this is not a coaching class.
All right.
So that's it. Okay? Just go back and read through the slides. Okay? Mr. Temidayo, this is not a coaching class. So we can't go into the details of your situation.
I understand.
Yes. All right. So go back and read through the slides and ponder on them and work on them. And if you need to do coaching, you go find a good coach to work with you. All right?
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Right. Welcome. So Mr. Durojaye's hand is up.
Mr. Durojaye, please go ahead.
Durojaye and Samsung. Yeah.
Good afternoon. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for these very insightful teachings or lecture. Okay, my question is this: those that have some kind of a personal issue in terms of character in our emotional intelligence approach, should we, and probably you have an insight of them on a way to get them better, should we emotionally or whatsoever means to get them to make them get better, or we should just manage them the way they are? Should we, like, maybe you have what you can do to get somebody's better, but since you are not the one in charge of their life, you are just probably a colleague at work, or just one of your subordinates, or even can be your superior. How can should we make them better, or we just keep managing the so-called quote unquote bad attitude?
Okay, now you presuppose that the bad attitude is a character flaw. So this issue again, back to emotional intelligence. What are the triggers? Why do they have that bad attitude? Why? By the time you get to even unpacking the why, you may well see that bad attitude may no longer be a bad attitude. But you have to do the work of what a high emotional intelligence person does, which is to understand themselves and their emotions and those of the other person. Okay? And understanding means, why does this person behave this way? What are the triggers? And then manage them. So when you talk of managing them, you're not a psychiatrist or psychologist to manage them and help them get better. But your own role is to understand what are the triggers for that bad behavior. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks so much.
Mr. Duke. All right, that's fine. Mr. Ubong Joseph's hand is up.
Mr.
Okay,
Joseph,
Drojayo is sending a heart sign. Thank you, Mr. Drojayo. I can see your heart sign. Thank you. Mr. Ubong, go ahead.
Mr. Ubong, please unmute. Let's move to Mr. Kayode.
Okay, Mr. Kayode, quickly.
Mr. Kayode, please, can you go ahead?
Hello. Good afternoon, ma.
Good afternoon. Please go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Subong Joseph. I really want to appreciate your time for this lecture. It's been very insightful. It's not really a question, just want to know when are we having this slide, because I really want to have it.
You will get it from the business school.
Mr. Ubong, there is a survey being shared on the chat box. Do well to fill it. Thank you.
I hope you send the survey to our WhatsApp chat, because after this meeting, there's possibility we might not have it.
The surveys at the chat box, please get the link and save it somewhere. Then you can do that later if you can't fill it now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kayode Adebola. Is it still available?
Okay, thank you, madam. I want to ask how best can we address the dark side of emotional intelligence? That is, people who are good in manipulating others, who have found their skills in emotional intelligence. How best can we address the dark side of emotional intelligence?
The dark side of emotional intelligence. Hello? Hello?
Mr. Kayode, are you there? I heard him say the dark side now.
His voice was muffled, so I couldn't even hear him well. Mr.
He
Kayode,
was
if you're there,
asking, how do you address the dark side of emotional intelligence?
I'm wondering what he means by the dark side of emotional intelligence.
Mr. Kayode, can you ask your question again?
What do you mean by the dark side of emotional intelligence? Can you talk in clear, simple words, please? There's nothing like dark side of emotional intelligence. Just be very clear and direct, please.
Mr. Kayode, please go ahead. Hello, Mr.
Can you hear me? Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Okay, so people who disguise their true feelings, you know, who disguise their true feelings, who hide their true feelings, and they will, of course, at the same time, good in manipulating people through emotional intelligence. So how best can we address people of such behavior?
Mr. Kayode, I must laugh honestly. They'll be maltreating people through emotional intelligence. And I'm wondering, what does that statement mean? People who disguise their feelings, I'm quoting you, disguise their feelings and are maltreating people through emotional intelligence. Please, I don't understand what you're saying, honestly. What are you trying to say? What are you trying to say? I don't understand. If you're talking about people masking their feelings, again, what we just learned, how do you know they are masking their feelings? If you're sure they're masking their feelings, that means you have done work to understand what their real feelings are and why they're behaving in a different way. Then lastly, how do you want to respond? But I'm just wondering, because this is your statement and your question really are hard to understand. under the guise of emotional intelligence, they are masking their feelings. So I really, really, really don't understand what you're trying to say there. So any more questions?
Yes, ma'am. I have 2 questions on the chat box. So
Please
the number one says, how do you manage people with childhood trauma?
Okay, that's simple. How do you know they have childhood trauma? Is it they told you, or a psychologist or psychiatrist has diagnosed them? So either one, you go for counseling or treatment with an expert, okay? With an expert. That's a straightforward answer. Any more questions?
Yes,
I thought I saw in the chat box something about depression.
Yes, ma'am. That's the second question. How do you work with someone going through depression?
Okay, so the depression again, did you diagnose the person, or did the certified professional diagnose the depression? And then you seek help. And that's why we're all learning to be effective leaders. We should, in organizations, be able to have access to that kind of help through our HMOs, okay? We get certified people, professionals, to support our colleagues or ourselves if we're suffering from depression. That's the answer.
All right, ma'am. I think we are done with questions. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for making this a very interactive session. We are very glad to have you here. Ma, so before you go, any final word of advice for people on the call?
Okay. My word of advice, and that's coming from the feedback which you have shared. Whenever we get information, let us understand it, let us process it before we start to even act on it. Some of the questions that have been asked or comments that have been asked make me wonder if we really got the information that was shared. Okay, a few questions did really make me wonder if I delivered the right content or people heard differently. So that means that maybe the reason you're asking, maybe they didn't join on time and so don't have the benefit of starting from the beginning. But again, we're a business school. So any information we get or have, we need to understand it very well, process it, make sense of it before applying it. That's all I have to say. But good luck, everyone. Thank you for making it an interactive class. I think we were almost 400 at the highest count. That's a good number. All the best to everyone. And thank you so much for signing up for this class. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma. Mr. Ido, please, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Our sincere appreciation goes first to Mrs. Maureen Obona for the very, very insightful section. I didn't actually start the section from the beginning, but I joined and then I was able to get a whole lot of information from, and the way you managed the audience and then also in answering the questions were very, very insightful. Thank you very much for your time. Also, Mr. Daniel, for moderating the section. Thank you also for properly managing the section for today. So my name is Idowu Adeleke. One of the key account managers in the admissions department of Rome Business School. So I'm just here to communicate one or two information that is relevant to this audience. Okay, so the very first one is to our prospects who are on this section.
Can we mute, sorry, Mr. Ido, can we mute some people because I can hear a lot of background noise. Okay.
Thank you, Ma. Okay, so first is to our prospect on this call, right? This is just a bit of what you're going to be enjoying and benefiting from the classes. And it's also very, very important you know that we are closing on the admission process for the current intake we're recruiting for. That is the October 2024 intake. that is kickstarting next month. So officially closing on Sunday, the 15th of October. So if you're still, the application is still pending, you are yet to come on board, this is a good time for you to reach out to your admission advisor, complete the process and come on board. Now, for those of us that are yet to get our VLE, not to worry, your VLE is in process and you'll be getting it soonest, okay? Thank you again for your time. We look forward to having prospects join the different master's programs that we have. And then also we look forward to kickstarting the master's program fully come next month. Thank you so much for your time. Do have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, then take care. Bye.
Thank you, Ms. Saido. Thank you. Ms. Justina, please, closing remarks.
All right. Thank you so much, Victor. Thank you for standing in for the moderator. Our moderator was unable to join in due to some network challenges. Thank you so much, Victor. You did a great job moderating the session. And thank you so much, Mrs. Maureen Ogbonna, for all the nuggets and the insights you dropped today. Thank you. The session was very insightful and interactive as well. And I also want to appreciate all the executive students who are on the call. Thank you for staying through till now. For those who are requesting for the recordings and the slides for the session, you would get that after the session. Just ensure to fill in the survey that has been shared in the chat box. Do also fill in your details and give feedback of the session as well. And also, moderator, Mrs. Maureen, who also happens to be one of our faculty member, is also on LinkedIn. You can also follow her on LinkedIn. I'm sure she's open to connecting with you as well. And so just in case as well, if you still have more questions, I can see some hands still being raised. Perhaps you might want to just reach out to her on LinkedIn to maybe get clarity on the questions that you have for now. So thank you all for staying true till now. See you again at the next session. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye for now.
Thank you very much, Justina. Thank you once again very much, Ms. Maureen, for giving us your time. Thank you for the presentation. We're very grateful. We'll reach out to you. Thank you, Justina. Thank you, Ido. Hoping to see you guys soon. Thank you, executive students that were able to join this session. And in your day-to-day activities at work. And please do well to fill the survey in order to get the slide. Ms. Maureen will be gracious enough to share the slide with us. But in order for you to get that slide, you will need to fill the survey. Thank you and have a cool night's rest.
Thank you, everyone.